Christmas is coming, the goose, the turkey, whatever, is getting fat, and still some people in the Netherlands paint their faces black and are surprised at the outrage. The UN says the tradition of Black Pete, which has brought with it demonstrations and accusations of racism, should go. Should it? You're watching Roundtable with me, David Foster. Well, welcome to the programme. I'm David Foster. Anti-racist activists in the Netherlands have tried on a number of occasions to wipe Black Pete from the record, or at least to modernise his look. Their latest attempts asking the courts to ban the character from state television, well, it came up short. The judge saying there just wasn't enough time to make a ruling before the start of holiday festivities. But why has the blackface character even survived?
He sparks protests from both sides in the Netherlands in the lead up to the annual Christmas celebrations. St. Nicholas, or Santa's sidekick Black Pete, is a caricature with painted black skin, gold hoop earrings, red lips and colourful Renaissance-era clothing. The character comes from a 19th century children's book written when slavery was widespread in the Dutch Empire. Those who defend him argue it's a tradition that's been around forever and a part of well-meaning childhood folktale. Others say he's a racist throwback to the colonial era. Should Black Pete belong to the past and not the future?
Right, time to get the chat going. Joining us via Skype from Amsterdam, we have Quincy Gary, a performance artist and anti-Black Pete activist. Hi there. Also on Skype from Amsterdam, Pam Evenhout, spokesman for the St. Nicholas in Amsterdam initiative to turn Black Petes into chimney Petes. Also claims to be the personal spokesman of St. Nicholas. At the Roundtable, Danny Sanders, Dutch would-be social media influencer who lives in Amsterdam, and Rashid Nix, equality campaigner and Green Party candidate, London man through and through. Rashid, great to have you with us. Thank you, all three of you. Great to have you here. I know you've come over from Amsterdam for this programme, and great to be talking to you two via Skype. Pam, let me ask you first of all, what do you think the story is here? Is it a story of racism?
Originally, most Dutch people don't think so, but essentially it's of course racism. And over the years that will change, as most tradition will change in time.
In what sense is it racist?
When I was very small, I'm 68 now, but when I celebrated Santa Claus in Amsterdam, the Petes were talking not normally, but what we call a kind of talk nobody could understand, but he was considered a little stupid. And over the years, that has changed.
Give us an example. Can you help us with that? Is it a patois? Is it a Caribbean, an African voice, or is it sort of a
Caribbean voice, Caribbean African voice type? It was regarded as the assistant of Sinterklaas, but not on the same level as, let's say, regular Dutch people at that time in the 50s.
Okay, so we'll come on to chimney Petes in a moment, but Quincy, let me come to you now. From the moment you first heard of Black Pete, and I know some children find him quite scary, did you find him offensive?
Well, I mean, my story is a bit different because I came to the Netherlands in 2002 to study. And I came from the Caribbean, from St. Martin. And although we're part of the Dutch kingdom, on St. Martin, we don't celebrate Sinterklaas's Zwarte Piet. That, of course, is different than on Curaçao and the Leeward Islands, where they do have it, but on the Windward Islands, we don't do it. So when I came here, I was initially a bit surprised because I thought to myself, blackface was something that was done in the US and Britain up until the 1960s, 70s. So why was it still being done in the Netherlands? And it wasn't until my mom was called Black Pete that I decided, hey, this needs to be tackled and something needs to be done to it. What's interesting about the discussion around the racism of the figure is that it already started in 1930 in the Groene Amsterdammer, a weekly periodical, where an writer called Melis Stookman, that's a pseudonym of a Jewish man called Herman Salomson, who decided, you know what, it's been, 60 years after the abolition of slavery, it's time we get rid of this racist figure in our midst. So when people say that the discussion is something for the last couple of years, it's actually a bit disingenuous and intellectually dishonest.
So I'm wondering, we'll come back to that in just a moment. I am wondering, therefore, how people, Danny, can try and change the conversation.
Yeah.
And I read some notes that our producer took from you, and it said you don't believe this is racist. You think it was all based on chimney sweep boys, who got black faces from the soot.
Yeah, well, I believe there's a difference between the original story, where it comes from, and the story that's being celebrated today. Because the story that's being celebrated today is not a racial story. Black Pete is not black because of the color of his skin, but because of the dirt on his face, because he goes through the chimney.
Take a look at the people behind me on that wall. Why have they got curly hair if they're just white children who've come down a chimney?
I agree on that it should definitely be changed, but that's the way Black Pete is being portrayed. And the visual
right,
aspect.
So we're trying to change the
story.
But is that sort of just trying to change a lie?
Change a lie?
Yes.
What lie?
The lie is that it's Chimney Pete rather than Black Pete, and it was Black Pete because he was a slave and subjugated, but don't worry about that. We'll change the story to Chimney Pete, where he's just a poor child who came down the chimney with a black face.
Well, I think it should change to Chimney Pete. But like I said, the point is
that in its own way is perpetuating the same story, but with a slightly different narrative, which in itself could be termed as a lie, when what actually needs to happen, some people say, is you get rid of the whole thing altogether, and then it's consigned to the past.
Well, but this is a very sensitive topic in the Netherlands. Extremely sensitive. We spoke before, and you said that you, for example, have 3 children.
4.
4, sorry, excuse me, 4.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm sure you have a lot of fond memories of celebrating your Santa Claus during Christmas,
Absolutely,
right?
because I used to have to put a glass of whiskey and a mince pie next to the fireplace.
Yeah.
And I used to have to drink it, and I used to have to eat the mince pie before the morning, otherwise they wouldn't believe it was him.
Okay.
That was no hardship, I can tell you.
Okay. No, but the point is, I'm sure you hold those memories in reverence, and that you were very passionate about passing those good memories of a fun celebration. I'm not talking about the content of the story, but just the reason why it's such a passionate discussion.
Do you see where this goes wrong? Because it's about the initial exploitation of black people. We'll come to you in just back to this in just a moment. Rashid, where do you stand on this? This is not just a Dutch problem, is it? It's not just a Dutch celebration.
What I would say, okay, well, if you look at the rise of the right wing across Europe currently, and how this whole debate plays into that whole narrative, where is it Black Pete, is it Soot Pete, is it whatever it is,
Rainbow Pete.
But it's not even Rainbow Pete.
No, yeah.
It's the connotations of having a black image, a black face, portrayed in a certain way, and you have to ask yourself, really, is Holland a confident country that can deal with its past and say, you know what, this image has no place in a modern cultural society, or we're going to hold on to it because it's part of our childhood memory, and I don't want to break my childhood memory. The reality is, sir...
And pass it on and give it to my children.
No,
you two in Amsterdam, jump in any time you want, just because we're talking here. Don't feel you've got to wait for the door to be open.
Can I finish my point?
Yeah, because in a minute, Pam.
Because what I would say, and if it's based around this idea of Christmas and Christianity and whatever, there's a piece in the Bible where it says, when I was a child, I did childish things. I thought as a child. Yeah. Now I'm a man, I put childish things behind me.
Yeah.
So does Holland now say, well, we did this 100 years ago and it's part of our childhood memory, or are we a confident nation that can say, you know what, this actually has no place in the modern society, it's time for it to go? There was a time when in Europe, they would burn women as witches. And someone said, it's not really a good idea, and let's move on from there.
But there is a big difference. We'll get back to that, because burning somebody as a witch is pretty permanent. Whereas you take black paint off your face. Pam.
Well, in terms of belief systems,
your turn, you wanted to jump in.
First of all, in Amsterdam, we started 4 years ago with the slow change from a Black Pete into what we call now a Chimney Pete, totally different appearances. 4 years ago,
In what sense,
90
different appearances? I mean, hang on, he's still got a black face, isn't he?
No.
no,
Not at all.
no.
Yeah.
No wigs, no red earrings, red lips, earrings, etc. None. What I want to make sure, 4 years ago, 92% of the Dutch population was in agreement with Black Pete. Now,
I've seen
last
that.
year, it was lowered to 64. And traditions, which are for 150 years in this country, change over time. In the 70s, it was forbidden for women in Amsterdam to become a Piet, because the board said Piet is something for males. And those traditions...
All right, okay, I think we're getting slightly off the point here. And
Absolutely.
Quincy, you are laughing in an ironic sort of way, I'm guessing.
Yeah, kind of, because the accomplishments that Pam is now, taking credit for, actually were pretty hard fought. When in 2013
we worked together
filed
in our action group, remember?
One second, Pam. So in 2013, when I filed a complaint together with 20 other people against the inclusion of the figure of Black Pete to the parade of Sinterklaas in Amsterdam, the St. Nicholas organizing committee in Amsterdam was vehemently against it. And when I mean vehemently, the guys who were playing the head Pete's actually quit the committee because they were in conversation with me and a couple of other people with the mayor.
Was changed
the
also.
mayor. But
I think
what
Pam's
happened
point is that,
that
societal attitudes change and people change with those attitudes, or they change the attitudes themselves, and that everybody's moving in the right direction. Though quite how somebody can come down a chimney without having a black face is a trick I'd like to see. Quincy, you carry on for a minute and then we'll bring it back here.
But I mean, I want to go back to what Rashid was saying in the way how these type of conversations on cultural purity, whiteness of a country, and who gets to talk in public discourse is really important. What we've seen last weekend is that right-wing hooligans, neo-Nazis, have aligned themselves to get with the people who are saying that Black people should stay. So this conversation isn't about a children's tradition. It's not about childhood memories. It's about who has power in this country and in Europe to talk about what it is that we need to move towards and how exactly we will live together.
Okay, we will come, Rashid, to you in just a second, but the expression on your face, Pam, when Quincy said cultural purity, I don't think we caught it, but it was something to be seen, really, wasn't it? You looked totally shocked, would be the way I would describe it. Askance is another word.
Now, I think that what Quincy is saying is absolutely right. In 2013, when the action group started this whole thing, the board in Amsterdam has been changed. The head Piet has been changed. And over the last 2-3 years with the action group, Quincy at the time represented, we worked closely together with the action group in order to change Piet as it is. And with the agreement of the action group, the physical appearance of Piet has been changed.
So can I ask you this?
Close cooperation.
Can I butt in here? Can I ask you this, Pam? If the physical appearance of Piet has been changed, if he is now a white person, I suppose it could be a black person who happens to be Santa's helper who's come down a chimney, Chimney Piet, and yet there are still people dressing up and blacking up their faces.
Absolutely.
Are they risking? Are they likely to cause trouble? Those people who perpetuate the old story.
Changes of tradition starts in the larger cities. If I take to Amsterdam, 55.8% of the people living in Amsterdam are not originally for Amsterdam. Remember, an extra 10% of expats. The only people in Amsterdam, originally Amsterdam, white like me, is only 33%. So the change from the original Piet to a chimney Piet in the larger cities will take place. In the smaller villages, it will take time to make this change. So the whole idea is we start in the larger cities, smaller cities, and thanks to the action group, the people are still very much aware about the discussion.
Let's try and change the direction of this slightly, because we've established where it is now, perhaps where it's come from. And I suggested that those people who continue to do this might be aggravating other people
Absolutely.
unnecessarily. Yeah, you sort of agreed with that. So I want to explore where the dangers of this are.
The dangers of this are that you can see that as much as, you know, Black Pete, Zwart Pete has no place in a modern society, you can see how there'll be certain elements on the right that will hijack this discussion and say, look at this, we're in our own country, we can't even practice our own traditions, we've been doing this from when we were children, and these people, these foreigners, brown skin, dark skin, are taking over our culture. And what I would say, the real irony is that in Holland you have the International Courts of Justice is in Holland. And at the same time, you've got the International Courts of Justice in Holland, you've got a set of the Dutch population who want to hold on to this openly racist image. And you're like, I think that the medical term is called cognitive dissonance. Where what you say and what you do don't align themselves. And this is a prime example.
Yeah, the other word is hypocrite.
Hypocrite. Okay, make it plain.
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
Because I get what you're saying, but I think the issue is that a lot of the Dutch people are not associating racism with Black Pete.
But it doesn't mean it's not racist.
But
No, I'm not saying that.
This is
you're
partly
correct.
where I'm going, and you're pulling us in the right direction.
Yeah.
That Dutch people perhaps think of themselves as, and I use this probably inappropriately, as whiter than white. In other words, you know, they can't do very much that is wrong, and therefore for anybody to suggest that this is racist is misunderstanding the Dutch people. But Pam or Quincy, this is a certain Dutch arrogance, is it, in not recognising the colonial mistakes of the past?
It's nothing to do with arrogance. Look at the Me Too discussion. 5-10 years ago, males were doing crazy things to women, and which they definitely will not do today. It's the same with the Black Pete. It's a trend which is going towards the good direction, but only due to the actions of Quincy and many other people who are fighting this like hell. And it's the only way to change this stupid tradition of the original Black Pete. And that will take time, and we should take the time.
But what I'm asking about, not the people who are trying to change it, but I'm asking about the people who perhaps are saying, listen, we should be left with our traditions. It's got nothing to do with racism, because I'm not a racist person. We're not a racist country. We didn't do anything wrong with our colonial in the Far East, with our colonies in the West Indies. How come you can accuse us of racism for doing something like that? It's those people I'm talking about.
Yes, but then you're talking at the moment at, let's say, villages where there's nobody from a different color than white. They don't know anybody from abroad. And since their grandparents, they are playing with Black Pete and Santa Claus. And nowadays, thanks to the media and the actions of Quincy, etc., they're coming to change. And it will take time. And as I'm always saying, Santa Claus has its time, and in 10 or 15 years, it's like the Me Too discussion, we will be also in rural villages.
Yeah.
Chimney Pete will be introduced.
And you're going to tell us in a little while about the tie you're wearing and your role as St. Nicholas, Santa Claus's spokesman. But Quincy, I asked you before the programme, and you sort of said, well, that's a weird sort of question, but I'm going to throw it to you again. Blacking up is no longer acceptable. As a performance artist, would you ever consider donning white makeup to play a part, because you are an actor? And that's what some of these people are doing, just simply acting. As Laurence Olivier was asked, when he was asked to describe how he could produce such performances, he simply said, well, I just act, dear boy. There's nothing more to it than that.
Yeah, well, I think there's more to it than that. It's about power, right? It's about understanding histories and trajectories of oppression, of violence, and of colonial subjugation. The figure Black Pete and dressing up as Black Pete was concocted in a time when the Dutch were slavers. They were enslavers. They had colonial properties. They had colonial territories. So when you pose the question to me, attempting to turn around the conversation, saying I could do the same thing, it's not a genuine or intellectually honest proposition, because it's talking about a different position of power. Going back to Rashid's point about white supremacy in Europe, people blacking up and dressing up as Black people here in the Netherlands has specifically to do with our intentional intentional silence and intentional attempt to distance ourselves from the damage that we did during colonial
Quincy,
history.
I think Danny
And
wants to
also
say something
Yeah.
either to you or in relation to what you've just said.
Well, in general, I disagree with you that the people are doing this based on a racial issue. I get it that that was the first story. That is true. Those are facts, undeniable. But that's not the stories being celebrated today. Today we have a celebration of St. Nicholas entering the Netherlands, and Piet comes along and helps him. So therefore, it's not. They're not just doing this to make sure other people feel bad or something. They're doing this because it is the tradition, and a bit more unlike an
we've been through a lot
sorry,
of that,
but
Danny.
if this is where I have to kind of take exception to your
up
argument.
until 5 years ago.
If people find it offensive, because you do something and you don't do it with the intention to hurt me, but you still hurt me.
No, there we go.
My
You are right.
feelings- my
You are
feelings-
right.
And so the real question is why do we seem to persist in this, under freedom of speech, under tradition, that we can continually offend people by doing things that people we know find
Did you
offensive?
understand what I was saying?
It's like I said, and I'll say the question again. Is Holland, is it a modern society prepared to change, or is it going to be stuck in its past and say,
You're right.
No,
we're
what-
going to celebrate
I want to
Black
I want to get these two talking to each other, because Pam, you wanted to say something perhaps.
Did you understand
to
what
Rashid.
I'm saying? We're saying that we had a tradition, which part of it is hopeless, the Black Pete. It's like the Ku Klux Klan people still in the States walking 30 years ago, ridiculous. And there were some people in England like white power, etc., which is also stupid. So give the people the time to adjust. And to say that the Dutch people are not that tolerant is simply stupid.
But sir,
Why?
with all due
Because-
respect,
Look, I'm going to
takes
stop this
time.
conversation right now, because obviously there are some Dutch people who aren't tolerant. There are some Dutch people who are incredibly tolerant. There are some people who would
That's
take on board
correct.
what you say,
That's the
and some
society.
people who wouldn't. Times are changing. I think that's
Absolutely,
I think
times are
that's
changing.
agreed. Either because of what you're saying or because of people like you two. Let's wind this up in a sort of more civilized fashion, and you tell us, because it isn't St. Nicholas that I think of as Santa Claus, the one at the North Pole that you represent. It's Santa Claus or Sinterklaas. Am I right?
Sinterklaas has been born in Turkey, moved to Spain, and is celebrating his birthday in the Netherlands. That's the story, basically. And what he's doing, bringing a smile on the faces of children.
Quincy, you recognise, do you, that times are changing?
Definitely, but I think it's changing because more people of color and Black people are standing up and demanding that they be accepted into society. It's not about tolerance. I don't need you to tolerate me. I need you to accept my existence as legitimate in this country.
Who is denying that? If you want to change,
I know the Prime Minister is denying that.
no.
And
perhaps-
Danny, are you growing up in a society that is more accepting of people, such as Quincy?
Oh no, I believe. I hope.
That's the word he wanted, accepting, not tolerating.
Oh please, I hope we accept all. That's not the issue. I think it's an issue of being able to look to the other side.
Yeah.
Yes, our experience of celebrating the story is a positive experience. So therefore we're like, no, we're not doing anything bad.
Yeah.
But the experience of the people who are offended is something that should be viewed.
But we have a polarized society,
Yeah,
don't
it's
we?
not a
Where you have a
discussion
prime
anymore, it's
minister,
becoming a
where you have a
fight.
prime minister who sort of brushes this off as a nonsense argument.
Yes.
Yeah, you have people trying to change it. Quincy saying, "I want to be accepted, not tolerated," and yet you have the other side of the argument, the right wing, in this, if you like, the
Absolutely.
right wing,
Who would
who are
claim-
trying to sort of push back against that
Yes,
argument.
absolutely.
How's one side going to win over the other?
I think education plays a key part in this. Just doing some research on this whole, Black Pete, and I was trying to find some famous Black Dutch people. So I went into, the oracle of Wikipedia, and there was a list of 100 Black Dutch people. I think 99 of them were football players. And I thought, okay, so apart from the sport, where do Black people operate in Dutch society and Black Pete? So education plays the role because Black Pete, from what I understood, was actually a Moor. The Moors were North African Muslims who came to Europe in the year 711, stayed for 800 years. Now, if you're going to have Black Pete, have the education behind the context of Black Pete so people can understand. If you just had some random black man with some frizzy hair, then it just plays into all the stereotypes. Give Black Pete a narrative, and then maybe people won't be so upset by Black Tea.
Thank you all. Thank you to the two of you in the Netherlands. Thank you to a Dutch person coming here, making the trouble to come all the way over here. Rashid, thank you very much indeed. Can I just wish you all happy holidays with no connotations, no inferences at all about it. I hope if you're
enjoy life.
If you're celebrate in the best possible way. And thank you for joining us on Roundtable. Thank you for watching. We'll be back pretty soon. See you then. Bye-bye.